the Wire Wallpaper.
We are here to talk about Shadow and Bone
by Leigh Bardugo. What did you like?
I liked it because it reminded me of one of my favorite books.
Okay. What's that?
Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
And it had a lot of the girl in the hands of fate trope alert!
Which will come up
moments.
later.
Yeah, it had one of those moments. So what did we like about this book?
I kind of liked the adventure part of it. Like, it was kind of interesting. And you know me and court books. I love a good book that is going to go into court.
Court intrigue.
I mean, courtly intrigue. You know, you can have...
You really liked high school, didn't you?
I kind of loved high school and kind of hated it at the same time. I was way more of a college freak.
You're a drama addict.
I was a drama addict.
So,
but yeah,
stuff.
anything that goes to court, I am going to be 100% on board with. Save your revolutions for somebody else. This girl wants a good knife in the back and a smile on your face.
Yeah, so I love it when a girl gets like super badass and learns how to fight.
I do too.
It's one of my favorites. That's what I liked. One of the things I liked about this. I also liked.
I kind of find that trope a little boring, actually. It's not one of my favorites. I'm kind of.
It is a trope. But I'm still a sucker for it.
You're still a sucker. I mean, like, I guess it's maybe because, like, my favorite fantasy trope is the girl who doesn't know how to play the game and then ends up becoming the ultimate game player. And,
yeah.
Like, so now we enter the point of the book discussion where we start critiquing it. And it doesn't mean we don't like it. World building.
World building. Such terrible world building.
So clunky.
It's not centered anywhere. You're like, oh, is this Russia? Wait, is it actual Russia
like,
or is it magical Russia? What? Is there a religion? I don't know. Is there, wait, the stag is science, but not
magic?
Magic? What, like, how does it work?
It's kind of just, it's a mash.
And who's the Darkling? We never find out who he is or why he's in power.
Or how he got in power.
How he got in power. And how does he have eternal life anyway? And, like, wait,
and how
does his mom have eternal life too? Like, or does she die? We're not clear.
We're kind of not clear. It's kind of just, it's fantasy light. It's fantasy light. It's not exactly like high fantasy. I mean, it's high fantasy, but it's light.
One thing I loved was there was lots of detail about like the makeup and the fighting, and that was great. But how come she goes to court and she doesn't learn anything else?
She learns nothing about court life, and it seems that there are lots of rules to living in the Grisha.
And she's, if she grew up an orphan and without, like, any sort of wealth, and never went to court, you'd think that there'd be some sort of, like, here's, like, all the rules moment from some mother figure who would be like, do this, don't do that, don't say this to this person, or these are these things you need to know. Yeah,
or there'd be, alongside the training fight montage, there would be, like, here's how to be a badass at court. Because being a badass
here's how to deal with men. And
here's how to deal with men.
So, she goes to court and she doesn't learn anything. What not to do.
She does have Genya. Yeah, but... The girl with a G name?
Yeah, but girl with a G name doesn't even teach her, like, here's how to flirt.
Yeah,
she doesn't have a popular best friend.
Girl with a G name basically is just there to screw her over.
So, is she her friend?
I don't know. Is she
Trope alert! Real best friend is not a best friend, or is best friend a best friend, and best friend is obsessed with boys. Again.
This is a really common, really frustrating moment because I think there's a lot to be said about female friendship.
Bechdel test failure.
I think there's a really great moments to be teased out of, like, female friendship that are just kind of glossed over in favor of, like, handsome boys in dark corners who are kind of rapey. Genya, G-name girl, is kind of...
Does anyone know how to pronounce that?
I don't think
Tell us in the comments.
How do you pronounce it? It's really one of those things, she just never really came off the page. We don't really know a lot about her, which I think can be said about the whole book and the world building.
And, like, why is she a servant, and how does that work, and, like, why does she suddenly, like, become not a servant?
And why does everybody hate her? Because apparently she's sleeping with the king, which we could also go into a whole thing about slut-shaming.
Okay, so I have another problem.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, placement and world building. There's no history.
There's no history.
There's no parents. There's no, like,
There's no parents. Like, but
Alina is a very flat character because she doesn't have any personal history. It's like... There's one flashback, 2 flashbacks where she discovers her powers, and one where she explains her scar. And that's it. Like, what about her parents? How did she become an orphan? Like, where did she come from?
I think we could also, like, tie this back in with the trope alert we had last episode when we talked about John Green, is that, and it's a very famous quote, I think, in the YA space. I don't remember who said it, which maybe not be as famous as it is.
Okay.
But every YA character every YA character in want of an adventure must get rid of their parents. Which basically is sort of like the trope of the YA genre, is that, like, your parents can't actually exist as parents.
Yeah.
They either have to be like this
like every Disney princess, every story is
or
like we have to like
we have to kill them,
kill the parents.
We have to be orphaned. Harry Potter, Shadow and Bone.
You have to have parents who are an ATM.
You have to Fault in Our Stars, or that they just don't care about what you're doing. Gossip Girl, anybody? I think you're really hitting on the whole biggest problem of the world building, is that there's no sense of collective history. Whether that's a history from a personal perspective or history from, like, the country as a whole perspective.
Right. And, like, I wanted to like this story, I wanted to like this character, but I could not be placed in terms of, like, who the Darkling was, what the country was, where we were, why we were there, who she was, what her history was, why she was there.
I think that's the biggest fault, isn't it? And I kind of wanted to like the character because I wanted a character who wasn't necessarily Katniss, who is like, I can take on a man, I can fight, I'm strong. In the male sense of the word, you know, I wanted to be able to like Alina because Alina was sort of like the antithesis of all that.
She could be girly
she
and
could be
badass.
girly and badass at the same time, which was like,
cool, shocker! Which
was kind of cool, but then she was just completely like, she was a flat line, you know? There was not a lot of gumption, there was not a lot of personality. She kind of, it was like her entire personality, her entire want was Mal. And
or affirmation from a male authority figure, which brings me to the next trope alert.
Trope alert!
So, Oedipal problems. Always Oedipal problems. But in terms of female-centered YA, it's the male authority figure. It's the male authority figure and needing approval from him, and that can be sexual or other. I mean, we saw it in John Green, Fault in Our Stars, she needs approval from the author. Here, this is the Darkling. And the Darkling is a sexual creature in her world, and she needs approval from him. She needs her sexual awakening to come from him. I think her sexuality and her powers are tied to each other in a really interesting way.
Her beauty is tied to her power.
Yeah.
Like, the denial of, which was kind of also interesting, like, the denial of her inner self, her true self, was leading her to be...
Yeah, it's actually one of the things I liked about it the most, was, like, when you acknowledge yourself and you become a whole person, then you are the most powerful, and that's a great message.
I totally get behind that, but, like, I hate it when it's tied to, like, physical beauty, that, like, somehow, like, when you... Like, I just kind of completely, like, shut down on that trope, because I was like... Oh, and now she gets to be pretty.
Right, because the pretty thing was like, definitely a cop-out. But for me, it was the physical strength, the ability to fight, the confidence. The ability
to have, like, confidence in herself, which was really cool to see.
And I feel like the pretty stuff, like, actually reduced that. You know, when she was being made pretty, it made her less confident.
I was thinking when she actually, like, she physically talks about, like, the repression and how, like, the repression makes her hair mousy brown.
No,
and, like,
it just makes her the dark circles under her eyes. I think that was more...
Well, like, the dark circles under her eyes, and it makes her weak and all these things, and that, like, when she exercises her power, that she becomes somehow, like, more beautiful.
Right.
Which is always, like, a thing with me. It's a thing.
Reverse Oedipal. She has to either end the relationship or get approval. And there's no in between. And her approval has to be a sexual awakening. And so the Darkling, as like super hot, sexy dude that she's compelled to be attracted to, and an authority figure of some nebulous sort that she needs approval from, for her very existence, actually, suddenly, like, he turns into a rapey dude. And that is really scary because that's something that happens a lot. I mean, this is like why girls can't get out of abusive relationships half the time, is because they feel like they owe a guy something, and so she can't get out of this relationship because she feels like she owes him. There's the moment where she like is like, well, if I go back to him, will he forgive me? And she checks herself, which is awesome. That made me so happy. I was like, yes, go you! Get out of that! But But the fact that that's, like, a major theme, and the fact that that's the way the fans interpret him in a lot of ways. Is
a lot of the fact that a lot of people like him really creeps me out. I'm not going to lie. This is my sociological side of me coming out.
Why do people like the Darkling?
Why do people like the Darkling? Why do people find him sexy? Why do people constantly be attracted to him? Because I was never really,
let's be honest, Mal is not attractive either. He's boring!
I would say Mal is boring, and the Darkling is interesting by comparison to Mal.
I get that.
But at the same time, I'm just going to say it. He's called the Darkling. Like,
he goes and tries to rape her in a dark closet. Mal
is also a trope alert, I would say.
Yeah, Mal is the sturdy boy.
Wait, hold on. We have to do this trope.
Trope alert!
Sturdy boy. He is the definition of every boy the girl will always end up with. Ever. PETA. He is stable, sturdy. He's there for her. No matter what the fuck she does to him, he will come back like a little puppy looking for more. She's not really abusive.
She's not abusive, but it's basically like setting it up as if an abusive relationship between them would be okay, because he'd come back anyway.
He would come back. He would forgive her. He would be a little bit mad and maybe a little bit pissed off, but he would never not come for her.
I wish he had actually gotten mad at her. Like, in the scene in the palace, like, it was like, hey, let me ask you questions and make you think and make you uncomfortable, but he never actually got mad at her. Yeah. And she never actually got mad at him. And I think that would have been, like, a good establishment of healthy boundaries and, like, sense of self. But neither of them have any sort of sense of autonomy anyway, so
whatever. Neither of them are really people to have a sense of self.
Yeah, so he's really flat and boring, and
he's perfect.
Yeah.
Which we could argue context that the novel is in first person, so we could argue that
she's an unreliable narrator.
She's an unreliable narrator when it comes to Mal. We can argue that. But at the same time, I feel like there are ways to sneak in flaws.
Yeah, that you could be like, well, he farts. or something. Like,
maybe he does. I don't think these characters ever farted in front of each other, ever. I mean, do you think these characters could fart in front of each other? Tell us below.
Wouldn't she, like, have a childhood other friend of some sort?
They were there together, though. They always had each other. She didn't need anyone else.
No, because you never have more than one friend ever.
You never have more than one friend
It makes the story too complicated. There are ways to get around that. There are ways to keep it simple while still, like, not making her fall in love with her pseudo-brother.
Ew, stop putting it like that. Why can't she have a good girlfriend? Why can't she have somebody? Why can't we have emotions that are more than just, I love you.
Never leave me.
Never leave me. Ever. Or, like, pure and abject fear because someone's about to collar her. That was a creepy moment.
Yeah. Trope alert. Girl is either, like, into boys and makeup or into fighting swords. And being a tomboy and is like, don't make me pretty.
Yeah, it's either one or the other. There's never really this, like, mix of, like, hey, I could be pretty. Like, if you're strong and you fight, then you abhor everything female. And if you're female, then you abhor everything that's male. Like, that could make you perceived as male.
Have you ever met a girl like that?
Not ever. And I know a lot of women.
Yeah. What's the deal?
I don't know. I don't know what's the deal. I really actually think this trope is one of the tropes that I hate the most. Out of all the tropes that we will probably ever talk about, the dichotomy between women, that women can either be this way or this way, but there's no, it's like mix.
Yeah, it's like she can be a slut, a virgin, a mother, or androgynous pseudo
They're always mother figures. I mean, even Alina's pretty much like let me take care of you. Let me take care of the country. That's like my now job. I am a woman.
What if she wanted to, like, go off and be like, I'm gonna go guard?
But she can't, because there are men tying her down.
You know, it's this girl in the hands of fate again. She has to, like, her entire life is dictated by these choices that these dudes make. And so the biggest decision that she can make within that is, like, changing her hair color.
I think we have to say girl in the hands of fate is really just girl in the hands of rich white men.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real here.
They never really went into that, but we can pretty much assume that everyone in Fault in Our Stars
was white.
Everyone in
a fair amount of people in Shadow and Bone, they're all white. I think the biggest flaw of this book that we can say across the board is just a lack of interest in the world building and the character building.
Yep.
That's its major flaw.
It's an awesome story.
It's an awesome idea.
The plot points are fantastic.
Yeah, it's well plotted.
Is awesome.
It's great ideas. There is a lot of actual feminist thought, I feel like, backing some of these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I think, unfortunately, it gets caught up in enlightened sexism, which is sexism that presents itself as feminism, but really just...
Well, it's basically like, hey, look, we're going to let her fight a little bit, but the dude still rescues her at the end of the day. Ah! Or, we're going to let her be feminist, but, you know, she still really wants to get married and live her life around the dude.
Yeah.
It's fake.
It's fake. Which is unfortunate, because I thought it had a lot more points to make and could have taken a really interesting direction.
Yeah.
Read
it if you want a fun read. But
it's
definitely,
really it's really an easy book to follow.
Take it on an airplane.
There you go. Take it on an airplane.
There you go.
It's an airplane read.
Okay. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Bye. Thanks. They look really good, right?
For not yeah, no, they look really awesome. You did well.
I'm basically MacGyver with makeup.
I'm a cat! Hey guys. Penny, say hi. Hi.
We control your agency!
Can you see this character farting? Yes or no? Equal opportunity shamers.
You've been shamed!
So at one point, somebody says something that offends her, and she's like, I brindled at that comment. What? Is she a horse? And they like suddenly like went.